Hi guys, and welcome back to Claire's Clues. On today's video, I'd love to talk with you about the book The Dichotomy of Leadership, written by Jocko, Willink and Leif Babin. Now there's three parts that I pulled out of this book today to talk with you about, so let me dive straight into the first one. And the first one here is all about balancing people. So it goes on to say that there are limitless dichotomies in leadership, but none are as difficult or as central as the one where you'll need to care deeply about your people. But yet at the same time, being willing to accept that there will be necessary risks that you will need to take in order to achieve or accomplish your mission, job, or task at hand. Now, in addition to building strong relationships with your people, you'll also need to recognize that at the end of the day, you are a leader and that you do have a mission or a job to accomplish. Now, with that in mind, guys, you'll also need to be aware of the fact that if you care too much about your objectives, you'll start to neglect your people. Now, this works in reverse as well, because if you care more about your people than necessary, you'll find that you start to compromise the success of the mission or the job at hand. Now, what you find is that a good leader finds a way to drive his or her team to accomplish the mission without making them feel as if they're going to be pushed off a cliff. Alright, so moving on to part 2 of this, guys, it talks about how you need to own it all but empower others. Now, this is all about extreme ownership. And it goes on to say that extreme ownership is the foundation of which you can build upon all other principles. Now, effective leaders take responsibility for their mistakes and they will not put the blame upon anyone else. Now, moving on, it also talks about how this doesn't mean that you need to make decisions for everyone on your team. But instead, if you were to do this, it's what's called micromanagement. And it's awful. However, on the other side of this, you also have something called hands-off leadership, which is just as awful, and honestly, it does not work. Because what you'll find is that it's perceived as if you're giving demands, basically, and that's not generally received well. So I can run you through a few of the cons as to why you wouldn't want to have micromanagement or a hands-off leadership style. Now, for micromanagement, you'll end up with things such as your team will lack initiative, and they won't seek solutions to problems, which become a problem itself. And they'll also be quite reserved when it comes to taking action, or they won't have any creativity when it comes to having an idea or putting forward their thoughts or something like that. And there'll also be an overall sense of passivity and a failure to react. So if something is necessary for them to do, they'll generally wait hand and foot on you to make the first move or to give them direction as to what it is they need to be doing. And that's for micromanagement. Now, moving on, the cons to hands-off leadership. What you'll find is that there will be a lack of vision within your team, and they generally lack coordination within themselves and within the group as well. So there's also what you'll find, because you're hands off, you're not directing them or giving them any advice on which way they should go, you'll find that there will be a few people in the team that want to step up and take responsibility, therefore making themselves feel as if they are leading the team. But this means they'll also start taking action without authority or beyond authority. And they'll start making decisions without you. And this could land them in hot water. And there's also within your team a failure to coordinate. So they won't generally get along with each other and start telling each other what's going on. It'll be all one-sided and you'll end up with multiple different people's opinions and they'll just end up clashing. So unfortunately that will happen as well. And at the same time, you might find that they will focus on the wrong priorities. So they'll start to put their time and effort into things that won't really matter too much, but will take up more time and energy than necessary. And last but not least on this one, there'll be too many people trying to lead. So back to the actions beyond authority, you'll find that too many people will step up and they'll want to start leading the group. But by doing this, they'll end up pulling the group in several different directions. So in which case, they're not actually moving forward at the end of the day, but staying quite stagnant because you've got too many people wanting to go in different directions and not a cohesive group that wants to go in one direction. So that's your cons to micromanagement and hands-off leadership. So what you'll find is that with effective leaders, they'll usually find the sweet balance between the two of them. And these are two extremes. So with extreme ownership, you are responsible for everything in your world. But the thing is, you can't make every decision. So unfortunately, as much as we might want to help our team out and make those decisions for them, we do get put into a position where it probably isn't best that we do that. And what you find is that you have to empower your team and you have to give them ownership. So they have to take ownership and you have to be able to give it to them. That way making them feel as if they're in the position to make decisions, and they're doing something that they want to be involved in, and not, you know, just drifting away, just, you know, colouring a book or sketching out on the wall, whatever it might be. They're cohesive. They're a group, and they've all got a direction of which to go in, and you're leading them. And last but not least, this is part 3, guys, and it talks about being resolute but not overbearing. So leaders should be neither lenient nor overbearing. What you'll find is that to find the balance, you must learn when it's important for a leader to hold the line, and when it's important for them to give some slack. And what you'll find is that they need to carefully evaluate each and every time something like that comes up. As well as things like that, you'll find that so there's 2 things that should help you do this. The first one is understanding that the concept of leadership capital, and the second is the power of why. So what you'll find is the former refers to the finite amount of power that a leader possesses. And they can choose to expend it foolishly on strategically unimportant matters, or you can smartly allow your people to blow off steam in less crucial areas. So what you'll find is that because when the time comes, when push comes to shove on this, you'll need to exert your power. And to make sure that your team will listen when it really matters, you'll need to be able to give them a reason to, and that's the reason why. Alright guys, so that's me done for all of that. I'll quickly do a summary on what I've just gone through. And the first one is all about balancing your people. So this talks about how there are limitless dichotomies, and you know, you will need to take time to accept the fact that there will be necessary risks that you will need to take. Now moving on, you also have to build strong relationships with your people, but also being aware that at the end of the day, you are the leader and that you do have a job to achieve or accomplish. Along with that, you also need to be aware of the fact that if you put too much focus on your objectives, you'll end up leaving or neglecting your people. And on the other side, because it works both ways, you'll find that if you put too much time and effort into your people, you'll end up compromising the real task at hand, what you're really trying to achieve. And what you'll find is that a good leader will always find a way to move or push his or her team to accomplish the mission or the job at hand without pushing them off a cliff. Right, so that's the first part of balancing people. Now part 2 is about own it all but empower others. So this is where it comes to extreme ownership, and how extreme ownership is where you can build upon, or it is the foundation of which you can build upon for all other principles. Now effective leaders generally take ownership of their mistakes, and they will not put the blame upon others. Now this doesn't mean that you should make every decision for your team, but instead what you should do, if you were to do such a thing, it would be things such as micromanagement, which is awful. And like I said, on the other side of that, on the flip side, you've also got a hands-off leadership approach, which doesn't achieve much as well and generally isn't perceived as great. So the cons to all of them are things like, you know, you'll lack initiative in your team, they won't seek solutions to problems when it's necessary, which is a problem in and itself. And you'll also find that there'll be lack of creativity, and no one will want to put their hand up and say, hey, I have an idea, or, you know, maybe we should think about doing this. Okay, so that's when you've got micromanagement going on. But when it comes to hands-off leadership, you've given your people no direction. So they'll start doing things like, you know, trying to take responsibility for things, and they'll start to act as if they're the leaders of the team. You'll also find that there'll be a lack of vision with things like that, and there'll be a failure to coordinate. So what you'll find as well is that effective leaders will usually find the sweet spot between these two, and they'll start to blend them together. So with extreme ownership, you are responsible for everything that goes on around you in your world, but you cannot make every decision. So again, you'll have to empower your team to lead it in a sense, and to take ownership. So you'll have to give them ownership in which they can say, hey, I can do this. Now part 3 to all of this, guys, and the last one here, is about being resolute and not overbearing. So knowing when to give a little bit and when to take, and when to hold the line, and when to make sure that you're quite stern. So 2 things that should help you do this is understanding that there is a leadership capital, and understanding the power of why. So the former refers to a finite amount of power that the leaders possess, while as as well as that part, you can also choose to spend on it foolishly on strategically unimportant matters, or you can smartly allow your people to blow off some steam in some less critical areas. And last but not least, because of all this, when push comes to shove and you exert your power, you'll have to make sure that your team will listen, and that they understand that, that they'll listen to you when it really matters. but you'll also need to give them a reason to, and that's your reason why. Alright, that's all from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video today. We'll be making a lot more of these videos for this training series to help you with your personal development goals. But until next time, leave a comment below on what you liked the most, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Claire's Clues. Bye guys!